my wrestling peeps? It's your boy E here with the GSMC Wrestling Laureate Podcast. Hope you guys are having an amazing midweek. Today is Wednesday, which my friends like to call, hump day. Don't get too excited. Don't get too excited. It just means that you're over that hill. Next, we're going down to the beloved Thursday and the always admirable Friday, which leads to Saturday and Sunday for a beautiful weekend. So, hey, always up for a good time. Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Wrestling Laureate Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. We have a great show for you lined up today. We have our WWE NXT Spring Breakin review. We also have our AEW Dynamite preview. And we're also going to talk about, with the WWE Draft right around the corner, we have our memorable WWE Draft moments. This is I think this is going to be pretty big, pretty entertaining. Obviously, a lot of things that you should know as a wrestling fan that kind of shaped the draft, that kind of helped become the reason why they continue to do it, the reason why they continue to do the brand split, and just like an overall, just an insightful, analytical, and statistical reason why the WWE draft has been so successful in WWE. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to cap it all off. We're going to talk about our Wednesday night superstar spotlight. We're going to talk about Athena. Athena in Ring of Honor is a dominant champion. She has a 500-day Ring of Honor World Women's Championship reign. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. Kind of like where she came from, how she became a WWE star, how she became a WWE NXT force to be reckoned with, and eventually wounding up in Ring of Honor and having the success she's having today. But before we move forward, I want to remind you guys to use the tips and donations link. We get a number of questions that come in during the show from viewers like you. So to ensure that your question gets read on air all over the world, I ask you to use the tips and donations link at the gsmcpodcast.net with your questions. Just put your questions on top so we can talk about it. Tell me what you like. Tell me what you don't like. Tell me what you want to talk about in this wrestling podcast. Tell me certain opinions. We love opinions here. And we love, of course, wrestling fandom subjectives always. And this also, leave a positive review, guys. Here at the GSMC Sports Network, we love peace, love, and positivity. So don't be afraid to hit that tips to donations link at the GSMC podcast.net, so you can talk to me. Talk to this good looking guy right here. I'm just kidding. No, I'm not that good looking. Not that good looking. No, I'm just kidding. All right, let's go ahead and jump on into it. We have our WWE NXT review. Obviously, kind of the first time I've kind of gotten, this whole aspect of WWE NXT kind of going through like a week 1, week 2. Much I kind of had it compared to WrestleMania night 1 and night 2. Overall, it was a really, really good weekly show. I know it's not necessarily called a pay-per-view or a main event. We can call it a weekly event. The WWE NXT put on Spring Break in night 1, and it was pretty good. Absolutely pretty good. The moment it began, you kind of saw Nick Aldis, Adam Pearce, and General Manager Ava through the WWE NXT, stating that WWE NXT will never be the same after the draft. Via, General Manager Ava, which is actually pretty cool. That has like a lot of people just like excited, kind of get people ready for this NXT brand that's gonna sooner or later end up on the CW. Kind of being that, you have Raw, which is going to Netflix. You have SmackDown, it's gonna stay on Fox, and now you have WWE NXT going to the CW, which is, obviously big for the brand, number one, big for the organization, WWE as a whole, number two, and number three, just really, really awesome for these wrestlers who have put in so much time and effort to kind of be broadcasted on, channels other than the USA Network, other than the Peacock, other than any WWE Network streaming services. And that's exciting. That's exciting. So I really hope that what they're doing right here is good for the company, mostly good for the talent, because the talent overall, yeah, you can have crafty storylines. Absolutely. You can have great WWE creative or just wrestling in general. You can have great creative writers, but you can't do crap without willing superstars, athletic superstars that are willing to do anything to kind of put your brand over, that that Mount Everest that you kind of have to go over to become a successful company in the pro wrestling industry. So yeah, NXT kind of, we look forward to good things. First, we're going to talk about our the NXT Women's World Championship match between Lyra Valkyrie and Tatum Paxley and the defending champion Roxanne Perez. It was a pretty good match. It was a very, very good match. I really liked it how Tatum Paxley kind of started off with that kind of like a demonic, kind of evil demon kind of crawling toward Lyra Valkyrie, and Valkyrie was like, "Hey, like what, like what's going on here? Like what the heck?" It kind of reminded me like kind of like a Wyatt family kind of thing. It wouldn't surprise me with the newborn Wyatt family coming out with Bo Dallas. Wouldn't surprise me. Maybe she's that. Maybe she becomes one of the members. It wouldn't surprise me at all. Obviously, she has the talent. She has the in-ring capabilities to put on a decent match, and also she has that storyline. Potential where she can perhaps be like that dark side of the new Bo Dallas, Uncle Howdy, Wyatt family rendition, perhaps. So I thought, all in all, I thought it was pretty good. I thought all three girls did a phenomenal job keeping the match mostly entertained. It was a great match. You had a bunch of near falls here and there, and you had the fans on their toes on the edge of their seats, counting 1, 2, and then she can't finish it. She can't finish it, and that kept going on and on and on, leading to just building up this foreshadowing to an amazing finish, building up and building up and building up. Kind of like if you can't relate to it in terms of sports, kind of like imagine you're reading a really good book. You're reading a really good book, chapter after chapter after chapter, to the point where you're reading, and you can't put it down. That's kind of what WWE wants to accomplish in terms of their superstars and in terms of the storylines that they're trying to portray and trying to kind of have a successful business or wrestling promotion, which I think WWE NXT is doing an absolute fantastic job. The sky's the limit for them, and this wrestling showdown honestly proved to me that WWE NXT can very much keep up with the ratings such as Raw or WWE SmackDown. So, good for the girls. Great for the girls. So it turned out Roxanne Perez, like I kind of thought about it. Well, like I kind of mentioned last podcast, when a wrestling promotion does a triple threat match, you kind of have that, that opportunity for the champion on the heel side to kind of find a way to steal the victory. And she very much did. Tatum Paxley had Lyra Valkyrie rolled up, ready for the 3 count. Even the referee was like 1, 2, and then he was like, "Oh my god!" And then she came in and covered Tatum Paxley, and Roxanne Perez got that victory. It was like 1, 2, 3. It was kind of crazy because they went from like a victory pin to another victory pin, and then you're like, "Whoa!" Like as a fan, I know I was like, how did this happen? How did how did Tatum Paxley lose this match? But overall, Roxanne Perez was able to show the reason why she is the WWE NXT World Women's Champion and why I feel like she continues to just impress and be successful on NXT. I don't think she should leave. She should leave at all. At all. So I thought that was pretty cool. Next, you have the Tony D'Angelo family against the No Quarter Catch crew. You had ultimately you saw the No Quarter Catch crew mostly had this match won. It was crazy. You kind of had those miscues from the guys, obviously, the Heritage Cup champions. And then you had the Tony D'Angelo family kind of like not playing possum. I don't want to say playing possum because a possum is never dead until it's scraped off the road. And that's kind of what what the D'Angelo family kind of did in sense of this match is that they just kind of like once again me making metaphors and comparisons. Kind of imagine boxing. Boxing. Sometimes you take the round one, you might get beaten, you might lose the points, but ultimately you take the round one, you're just sizing your opponent. You're finding out what their capabilities are, their stamina, their endurance, any like sort of special jabs or moves or like overhook punches. But ultimately, it's working in your favor. And I think throughout this match, the D'Angelo family was kind of doing that. And ultimately, at the end, they defeated a no quarter catch crew. No surprise. And they pointed to them and they were like, "Hey, we want our payment. We want our payment. We were helping you guys out. I don't want to see you guys, sleeping with the fishes." Like, like kind of like, that Italian, stuff like that. So ultimately, I think that they're going to kind of head toward a Heritage Cup championship between the top dog, the Don, Tony D'Angelo, and probably one of the guys for the No Quarter Catch crew. I can't put my thumb on it. With the whole Drew Gulak thing happening with Ronda Rousey and how he might be, excommunicated from the WWE due to a backstage incident, and in terms of sexual harassment, in terms of Ronda Rousey and Drew Gulak. Although Drew Gulak says it was a misunderstanding, but we'll just wait till that all figures out to kind of unpack that. So honestly, I want to see the D'Angelo family continue to have success in the WWE, kind of have that WWE NXT, kind of like that appeal, kind of like that entertainment that just brings you week after week after week, kind of like a McMahon Helmsley era. Like you had the family, you kind of had Triple H, Stephanie, and essentially DX, Road Dogg, Billy Gunn, X Pac were kind of like the family, and taking on competitor after competitor. But ultimately, I think that I think a reason why the D'Angelo family has an edge over this DX kind of story plot that I'm using as a metaphor. I just feel like because they win their matches, they're hard, they're hard hitting, they're hard headed. It's like a smash mouth wrestling match. And honestly, that's the reason why I think the Don Tony D'Angelo deserves another title run in WWE NXT. So, I think that's pretty cool. Next, we have the Baron Corbin basically says that he's not affirming the rumors. The rumors are that Baron Corbin is going to be drafted to wrestle to a WWE Raw or WWE SmackDown, and he said, he doesn't really want to go anywhere. And honestly, I don't want to see him go anywhere. He's established so much in WWE NXT to the point where I really would be disgusted if he made it to the WWE SmackDown or Raw roster because he was there before. He was there before, and WWE creative couldn't do crap with this character. They couldn't do crap with the storyline. They couldn't do anything with the development of his talent, of his character, of his capabilities. Ultimately, leading Baron Corbin to be like, you know what, dude? Nah, I'm you know I'm stepping. I like NXT. I like NXT. Back then, NXT was run by who should I think of? Triple H, Paul Levesque. Baron Corbin went down to Paul Levesque and be like, look, like your father-in-law, he's not doing crap with me. He has this happy Corbin thing. He has this me poor, begging for money. He had me losing my money in the bank, redemption, my cash in. And ultimately, you kind of Baron Corbin is a phenomenal athlete. He's had success outside the WWE. He's had success. He's a Golden Gloves boxer. This guy could actually fight. He's a dynamo in the ring. And I think the reason why Baron Corbin didn't really establish success was because it was based on a rumor that him and Vince McMahon kind of had a falling out based on the creative orders from the chief content officers before Triple H took over, and ultimately they buried him. They buried Baron Corbin, and he wasn't able to kind of get back up to the Gestapo ever again. So I want Baron Corbin to stay on NXT. He doesn't belong anywhere else. All right. Next, we have Joyce Jane challenging Thea Hale to a match at week 2 of WWE NXT Spring Breakin. I thought that was pretty cool because both of these women superstars, it's been building up. It's been building up to something that just needs to explode. It needs to explode. And when it explodes, it entertains everyone. It entertains me. It entertains me, entertains you, and it really entertains the superstars going in there, just giving it all they got, trying to beat the hell out of each other. And you see these two NXT women talents, and they're of course able to put on an amazing match. Thea Hale is like right there. She's like right there. It wouldn't surprise me within. I can guarantee you from a year from now that probably Thea is going to be holding one of the WWE NXT Women's Championship or the new North American Women's Championship. I guarantee it. Absolutely. She's a phenomenal talent. So I think, obviously great things coming for her. Next, we kind of have Ava, the general manager of WWE NXT, announcing for the first time ever it's going to be a women's underground match between Natalia and Lola Vice. Natalia ultimately she was followed by Petrovich, and also you kind of have it was like so shocking that Lola Vice, she didn't have somebody standing in her corner, nobody, no talent spotter, no trainer. And Ava asked, he's like, okay, who's gonna be your trainer? Then all of a sudden, bam, the Queen of Spades comes out. You see Shayna Baszler come out, which kind of makes me believe that Shayna Baszler is ultimately coming back to WWE NXT, which is good for Baszler. I like that for her. Like once again, a talent that made it up to the main card, Raw and SmackDown, and they couldn't really do much with her talent. So she's gonna come back to NXT, the first ever WWE NXT star to hold the Women's World Championship twice. Ultimately, you kind of have to think and common sense that Shayna Baszler belongs in NXT once again. So, pretty cool with that. Next we have Soruka against Blair Davenport in the beach brawl. It kind of honestly, but this could be totally me. I'm a violent, I'm not take that back. I'm not a violent guy. I love the Attitude Era. So, I kind of like watching violent wrestling, especially how much they kind of took to kind of build up toward this match. You had Blair Davenport like interfering in Lola Vice's match with Sol Ruca, costing her a chance at like potentially a WWE NXT Women's World Championship contendership. But I don't know. It just felt like for two superstars that, and the announcer kept saying it. These women hate each other. These women hate each other. I was like, dude, for two women to hate each other, or just two individuals whatsoever, you would expect like so much violence, more weapons. But once again, I know WWE is totally PG. Maybe that could be a possibility of why we didn't really get so many table cash throughs or so many chair shots or something like that. Or they were wrestling with surfboards. They were like riding on their surfboards. Surfboards, like it's cool and all. Absolutely. It's awesome. But this is this I thought this was a brawl. I thought this was a brawl. I thought this was you walk into a bar brawl and you walk in there, and instead of people like drinking beers and throwing bottles at each other, they're sipping tea and throwing crumpets at each other. Like, "Hi, hey, he." I'm just kidding. I'm like, not trying to, not trying to denounce the whole teas and crumpets and stuff like that. That's a cultural thing. I respect that. But anyways, I thought it could have been better. I really thought it could have been better. When they went through that picnic table, I was like, all right, this is gonna get started. This is gonna get started. They went through the table, and after that, the match ended. And I was like a build up. Imagine being left on that cliffhanger. Imagine being left on a cliffhanger, just knowing that cliffhanger was the actual cliff. It was just like one of those. It's like I don't know. I kind of but that's the Attitude Era in me. I could be wrong. Absolutely could be wrong. So yeah. And they kind of finish it all off here at WWE NXT Spring Break in night one. We had Trick Williams do the impossible, defeat the Czar, Ilya Dragunov. It was about time Trick Williams whoop that trick, whoop that trick, whoop that. Yeah, if anybody at home's watching right now, maybe chat with me. Whoop that trick, whoop that trick. It was, I don't know, it was great. It was great for Trick Williams to kind of finally accomplish something that he hasn't accomplished in NXT, especially against someone that was just so dominant. Ilya was amazing. He was an amazing wrestler. And throughout the evening, you kind of had WWE superstars from Raw and SmackDown. You saw Pete Dunne, Tyler Bates, Johnny Gargano, kind of just like comment toward, and then they showed a post on X from the LA Knight, Bobby Lashley, Cody Rhodes, basically hyping up this match. And that honestly, I thought they did a pretty good job when it came to that. Honestly, Trick Williams deserves the belt. He's the new future of NXT. And congratulations, Trick Williams. Absolutely phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. And something that, sportsmanship, sportsmanship goes a long way. I know a lot of people might be like, you know what, like if I lose my championship, like I would just deck the guy in the face. But Ilya Dragunov, like he was sincerely just with so much passion. So much passion. You just lost your belt. You look into the face of the guy who beat you, grab him, give him a little smooch on the smooch on the cheek, and just embrace him because he knows that Trick Williams is going to take this brand to the next level. And also, he kind of thinks about it. He's like, my era is done. One, I hope Trick does well on NXT because I love NXT. I love NXT, but I'm also speaking on behalf of Ilya Dragunov. And he also looks at, his future toward Raw and SmackDown. And it's kind of grim to say, and I hope it doesn't happen to Ilya, but very few superstars, and I mean very few superstars, has made it from the NXT roster and made success in a long-term quality storyline or booking with Raw or SmackDown. That's just in the past. Perhaps the Paul Levesque era is going to promise something different. Hopefully it does. But you can just kind of sense like that emotion. Like he knew his time in NXT was up. He knew his time as NXT was up. Usually superstars are so excited to go to Raw or SmackDown for the draft. But then you kind of think back and you think back on the history and you're like, man, I had so much fun here. So much success. Getting to know the guys, personnel, referees, announcers, the fans. And now it's gone. Now you move on to Raw, SmackDown, more of like a cutthroat kind of industry entertainment. And you kind of hope the best. You kind of hope for the best with Ilya and hope that he's not one of those superstars like Cameron Grimes, Keith Lee, Aleister Black, basically everybody on 205 Live, Cedric Alexander, Mustafa Ali, who, they lost their minutes of fame and all of a sudden they went down and quite frankly haven't really made it back up to the Gestapo. So, we wish the best for Ilya Dragunov in the upcoming WWE Draft. Well, next, don't go anywhere. We're going to talk about our AEW Dynamite preview. AEW Dynasty had they had an amazing matches. They kind of had new champions crowned, champions retained, but ultimately left us with a bunch of questions to interpret. So, hey, don't go anywhere.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits, some losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip, you choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
All right. Welcome back to the GSMC Wrestling Laureate Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Just kind of reflect on what we talked about. We talked about our WWE NXT Spring Breakin preview, and also with Trick Williams being the next guy, what we can expect from him moving forward. What exactly is in store for Ilya Dragunov? Like I said before, a couple of past, NXT superstars who made it up to the main card. Didn't really necessarily find that pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, but hopefully it's different for Ilya. Hopefully it is different under the Paul Levesque era. So, wish the best for him in his future endeavors. Next, we have our AEW Dynamite preview. It's going to be pretty off the hook, but before we move on, we're going to talk about our tips and donations link. Why don't you guys like talking to me? I'm just kidding. We get a number of questions that come in from viewers like you. So to ensure that your question gets read on air all over the world, I urge you guys to use the tips and donations link at the gsmcpodcast.net with your questions. Just put your questions on the top so I can see it, so we can talk about it. Tell me what you like. Tell me what you don't like. Tell me what you want to talk about in this podcast. Tell me your views on NXT. Tell me your views on AEW. Tell me if what I'm talking about isn't up to par, although it's impossible because I am like the best wrestling podcaster in the world. No, I'm just kidding. No, that was over cocky. I don't want to overdo it. Oh God, please God, no bad karma. No, but ultimately, I'm here, guys. I'm here to talk. Again, the link is at gsmcpodcast.net with your questions or statements or positive feedback on my new haircut. I promised you guys a new haircut, and we'll just say it's looking good. I'm just kidding. I'm just being a dork. Sorry, guys. I'm a dorky wrestling fan. I hope y'all are dorks with me. King of the dorks. King of the dorks. I'm just kidding. Let's move on to wrestling. We're talking about wrestling. All right, we're going to go on to our AEW Dynamite preview taking place tonight in Dally's Place in Jacksonville, Florida. Tonight we have Chuck Taylor to choose between Orange Cassidy and Trent Beretta, of course, formerly known as the Best Friends. And of course, Chuck Taylor had to ruin it all. Why'd you have to break up the Best Friends, man? You guys were so good together. Usually it's that one, like, that selfish, like, those ambitions. It's like, you know what? You want to be a singles guy wrestler? Go and get out of here, man. Get out of here. Why am I talking Italian or trying to, like, what's happening? Just kidding. Anyways, so that's going to be addressed tonight. Also, what's also going to be addressed tonight, and what I feel like should kind of be addressed is, this whole thing with Chris Jericho. Why do people hate Chris Jericho? I don't understand. After the match with Hook, he eventually won. Winning the AEW FTW Championship, and everybody was just dogging him, man. Even chants were like, "Please retire." Please retire. And like, do you guys know what Chris Jericho has done for your brand? Do you AEW, fans know exactly who the Ayatollah of rock and rolla is? Like, and by all means, yes, I'm a WWE fan, and yes, I watched Chris Jericho growing up, and I maybe might have kind of like a biased point of view toward this, but ultimately, you kind of have to think of, kind of these things before you go ahead and, insult him like that. You know what I mean? Well, starting off, we have he joined AEW in the startup in of January 19. So this guy has been with you since the beginning of 2019. Unbelievable. So he was there during the pre-pandemic where where you had this startup of, yeah, let's build a wrestling promotion to take down Vince McMahon. And everyone's like, have you seen wrestling promotions that tried to take down Vince McMahon? Guess what? They're unemployed or they're employed by Vince McMahon. So that's something you have to admire Jericho on. And also you have him sticking during the pandemic. The pandemic where people were urged to stay at home. There was no ticket sales, no merchandise, nothing at the stadium going down. So whenever it was like, yeah, can we have a wrestling fandom at your arena? They're like, why? Why, think if you're the owner of the MGM Grand in Las Vegas. Hey, can we have a pay-per-view of wrestling at your venue? And think of, are you selling tickets? No. Huh. Do we get a percentage of the merchandise being sold at the venue? No. Huh. That's a big pass on this on this end. You know what I mean? Like, it's a no-brainer. And I feel like a lot of people don't give Chris Jericho kind of like that credit. And he was the inaugural AEW World Champion. Usually when a world champion is crowned, you think back in terms of like WWE, the NWA, also a TNA. You kind of make sure that first guy that you crown as champion. Look at, Cody Rhodes in this new Paul Levesque era. I know it's not a new promotion, and I might be comparing apples to oranges here, but essentially it's the same thing. Essentially, you kind of have a new era of wrestling. AEW, they have to put a strap on a guy that could put butts in the seats, sell big promos, and who could keep the fans at the edge of your seat. And who was the inaugural champion in AEW? Chris Jericho. So I might be, more hot on Chris Jericho than a lot of you guys are, but honestly, he deserves it. He started it all. He held the company afloat, and he was able to help it propel it into the next step. So ultimately you kind of have to give Chris Jericho a little bit of, you have to pay your respects for one of the quote unquote like founding fathers of the AEW. So one of those things where you kind of think it's like, so is there an AEW without Chris Jericho? Is there really? I honestly don't think so. I'm gonna, obviously, if you have comments, use the tips or donations link at the GSMC podcast.net. But honestly, like, I honestly don't think there's a successful AEW industry without Chris Jericho. Because Chris Jericho, he came from WWE. He knew the insides and outs. He knew exactly what Vince McMahon was all about. And for him to kind of like, kind of formulate creativity and also, talk to his team of wrestlers and be like, like Vince McMahon, he has nothing on you guys. It's the same product over and over and over again, which is the reason why a lot of wrestling fans jumped ship to AEW. They just wanted something new. Absolutely. And who could better tell you how to produce something new that Vince McMahon's not doing with someone like Chris Jericho, who's been with the company for 10 plus years. So their success, a lot on Chris Jericho's back there. I believe that 110%. And like when he made it to AEW, he didn't just walk in and take the championship. He defeated some of the best guys in the independent wrestling scene, like Kenny Omega, Hangman Alan Page. The list goes on and on and on. So just remember, and then Chris Jericho went on to create one of the biggest factions in AEW history, the Inner Circle, with Sammy Guevara, Jack Hager, Santana, and Ortiz. And if you think about it, the best thing about Chris Jericho is that he can really honestly be inserted into any type of stable, fandom, storyline, or title picture. And it just fits. It works. Chris Jericho works with everything. He's like salt or he's like butter. When in terms of like, potatoes, you add no, what is it? Oh man. I work as a chef at freaking senior living facility. And I heard somebody once say that cheese makes everything better. And so is Chris Jericho the cheese of AEW? Perhaps. Perhaps. That's pretty cool. He might cause, I'm just kidding. No, we're not going there. We're not going there. But ultimately, Chris Jericho does a lot of, you can honestly kind of sum up his career in AEW as an experienced veteran that was signed to bring credibility to a young promotion like AEW. They needed somebody like that, like Chris Jericho. And he was honestly one of the key attractions in AEW from week after week after week in terms of television broadcast. So, honestly, next time you AEW fans are ready to boo the Ayatollah of Rock and Roller Chris Jericho, just remember that he's done quite a bit for you. He's done quite a bit for you. You got to pay your respects, bro. All right, well, moving on to AEW. I know I went on a rant there a little bit, and we're kind of running short on time. So much to get to with a little amount of time. Next, we're going to talk about Willow of Nightingale. She's going to have a title celebration tonight. Well, title celebration tonight. Um, I think it's going to be interrupted by Mercedes Moné, obvi. We also have the Julia Hart, former WWE TBS champion, probably is going to find a way to crash it. Um, Ultimately, I feel like something's going to happen here that's going to force like a triple threat match going toward Double or Nothing in Las Vegas. But honestly, like, it's been confirmed that Julia Hart wasn't behind the blackout attack on Mercedes Moné. I don't know how much Willow of Nightingale has to do with it, but it doesn't look good. It doesn't look good right now. Mercedes Moné, she doesn't trust anybody. Kind of like when in terms of like a new wrestler, like a new coworker, you walk in any place and you're like DTA, bro. Stone Cold Steve Austin's DTA. Don't trust anybody. And that's kind of what Mercedes Moné's doing toward like Willow of Nightingale. And of course, you kind of have that nostalgia effect. Willow of Nightingale was the last person Mercedes Moné fought in her match where she was ultimately pushed off the top rope, headed toward the outside, landed on the concrete, breaking her foot and basically in half. And she was told by the doctors that she would never, ever, ever make it back to the wrestling scene ever again. Ultimately, she's back. And against who in her first match? Willow of Nightingale. So nothing like a little bit of uh, justifiable poetry, so to speak. And so we have a match between Mina Shirakawa against Anna Jay. I've been high on Anna Jay for the longest time. I think that she's going to get a push in AEW, probably sooner than later, or maybe perhaps Impact Wrestling, but her time is definitely coming. And to kind of finish it off, we have our Swerve Strickland, Kyle Fletcher match in the AEW World Championship Eliminator. Kyle Fletcher has been kind of like the new kid on the block. He's kind of the new sauce. He's a new sauce. So, he definitely has what it takes to be a champion. Against Swerve, newly champion who won it at AEW, defeated you know, the the impossible. He did the impossible and defeated the Samoan submission machine in Samoa Joe. But honestly, I don't see really Kyle Fletcher like kind of being over right now with the company. So I think more or less this is kind of just like a nice little match for Swerve to kind of introduce himself as the AEW World Heavyweight Champion and probably come out the AEW World Champion. Well, of course, I don't think this is a title contention match, but yeah. Anyways, so hey, our next topic we're going to talk about with WWE Draft in the mix, especially happening in like 2 days on Friday Night SmackDown. We're going to talk about memorable WWE Draft moments that kind of help, kind of stake a claim that careers are changed at the WWE Draft, and sometimes legends are made. So hey, don't go anywhere.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
All right. Welcome back to the GSMC Wrestling Laureate Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. So we'll, kind of reflect on what we talked about. The first segment, we talked about our WWE NXT Spring Breakin review. Trick Williams ultimately getting the title on him. Totally proud of Trick. Whoop that Trick, baby, all the way. Segment 2, we talked about our AEW Dynamite preview. And, we're going to move forward to our memorable WWE Draft moments. But before I move on, I totes forgot, running out of time, I kind of spaced here, that tonight on AEW Dynamite, we do have Jon Moxley against Powerhouse Hobbs for the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship. Obviously, Moxley and Hobbs, they were aligned at one moment where Hobbs was the babyface. But ultimately, I think Moxley's going to destroy. And also, you have Jack Perry. Well, Jack Perry joined the Elite tonight. Nobody knows. Wardlow tried to help Roderick Strong defeat Kyle O'Reilly. But ultimately, Adam Cole, the leader of the Undisputed Kingdom, wasn't really for it. So he was absolutely upset with him, kind of gave him that like death stare down, like, hey, you the next stop, bro. So, that's something also to kind of pay attention to. And also, I kind of thought about it as like you kind of have Adam Cole and you kind of have the big guy Wardlow. Kind of reminds me of kind of like when Shawn Michaels and Big Daddy Cool Diesel were one, like kind of like a faction. But then ultimately you kind of fell in love with the big guy that kept getting abused by a big name talent like Adam Cole, ultimately, which caused Diesel to attack Shawn Michaels. In turn, I think Wardlow will attack Adam Cole. So, of course, absolutely, we can move on here. I just had to touch on that before because I am the wrestling, I am your wrestling lord. I don't want to miss any big points here. So, yeah. Anyway, so we have our WWE Draft memorable moments happening right now. All right, next, let's go ahead and start from the beginning here. First, we're going to talk about our definitely a memorable WWE Draft moment. Has to be 2002, where Ric Flair, as the drafting manager for Monday Night Raw, ultimately drafted the NWO as a whole. The NWO was kind of not, kind of like decadently not fresh off the boat in terms of WCW. To be honest, you kind of have the bootleg NWO, which I kind of like to, kind of like to phrase. And I'm not trying to dig on any of those superstars that were part of that. Obviously, you had two of the main guys, Kevin Nash, Scott Hall. You didn't have your Hollywood Hulk Hogan, which was ultimately kind of like the leader. And when the moment Hulk Hogan kind of went face and didn't join the NWO, it was kind of like a little weird thing to kind of grasp. But ultimately, they had new superstars join. Obviously, Nash, you had Hall, then you also had X-Pac, Booker T, The Big Show, Shawn Michaels, and it just, I don't know, it just didn't really make good for good wrestling. Honestly, I didn't think it was, I don't think it was worth a damn, but, that's just me. And because I'm an old school NWO guy, we did the WWE factions kind of list. I want to say like a week ago, 2 weeks ago, and these guys won my factions list. These guys were the best WWE faction, the best WCW faction, and they just, they were so they were like they were like the role model. They were like the role model to what you see the Judgment Day being today, the No Quarter Catch Crew on NXT. You also see just numbers and numbers and numbers of stables that go through this thing where they just wreak havoc all over the promotion and just kick ass and take names. So, ultimately pretty cool. Next we have our 2008 um 2008 WWE Draft. This was kind of like this kind of has a lot to kind of go into it. Um, I kind of read it as like WWE kind of pillaging ECW. You saw names like CM Punk, Kofi Kingston, Shelton Benjamin, Kofi Kingston, and Kane, who were like, big names in ECW who were helping build ECW as a new brand under the control of WWE Creative. And it just it was crazy because Kane was finding so much success under ECW as the world ECW champion, and for him to come back to WWE definitely was a setback in his career. Ultimately, he never really made it back up to the main card, like heavyweight title. Like, of course, he would might challenge superstars like Batista, Triple H, Edge, and JBL, Randy Orton, but he never really held the title, and I think that's kind of a bummer. I think that's a damn shame because the ECW champion was drafted for the second straight year. ECW lost their champion, which is crazy, absolutely crazy. So essentially, you're kind of setting up ECW for unsuccess here. You had then you also had the GMs for ECW. You kind of have to think about it. You had Paul Heyman, which was good. You had Armando Estrada and Teddy Long. Why didn't Paul Heyman stay with the brand that he tried to push for years on years? It's because Paul Heyman wanted ECW to thrive in a company, and Vince McMahon didn't want that. He really honestly did not want that. He really, I think it's. Mm, of course, I don't want to be that conspiracy wrestling theorist, but I think it was pure sabotage by Vince. Absolutely. 100%. I feel like it was pure sabotage that Vince kind of saw, what Eric Bischoff was doing with Raw and kind of saw what Paul Heyman was doing with ECW, and he didn't like it. And you got to think about, essentially Heyman and Eric Bischoff were fired in 2006 at the same time. You had the ECW guy, you had the WCW guy. You have complete control over. The moment they start bringing up something that's not, familiar to you and the way you want to do things, absolutely control freak Vince McMahon was. And like, you just kind of have new innovative ideas, and he's like, no, we're gonna do that, or this and that and the other, and like they get fired, and it just kind of sucks. Paul Heyman essentially wanted CM Punk to be the ECW champion over Lashley. Bobby Lashley, and automatically, like, he's an amazing superstar, amazing talent. But imagine if CM Punk kind of got the push before he got the push when he got the push. I know that sounded so weird and so confusing, but stay with me. Uh, so basically, what I'm saying is CM Punk could have been a way bigger superstar than he is now if he would have got pushed earlier with perhaps the ECW brand. Maybe something could have happened more. Maybe they could have developed something to kind of help CM Punk stay where he didn't have to take that hiatus, where he didn't have to do the pipe bomb dog and John Cena and Triple H and management. Like maybe it all could have ended differently if he just would have let, Paul Heyman kind of do his thing. And of course, the moment Paul Heyman leaves, you put Armando Estrada, who probably has no experience whatsoever. He was the manager for Umaga. And then you have Teddy Long. Love Teddy Long, but ultimately they hired these guys to be yes men. Vince McMahon wants a yes man. He doesn't want anybody to kind of challenge his rule. So, he wasn't looking for innovative ideas. He wasn't looking for creativity. He wasn't looking for perspective, storyline, promotional initiative. And it killed ECW. It killed ECW in the new age that they were trying to bring something up, ultimately. And that just makes you want to think that I really hope that WWE NXT doesn't really end up like that. Under the Paul Levesque era, I highly doubt it. Because people felt kind of like what you think about WWE NXT today. Well, not today, but recent years, that many wrestlers felt being drafted to ECW back in the day was something kind of like a demotion. Kind of like a demotion. Kind of like when you saw like Ember Moon go back down to NXT. When you saw Finn Balor work down there for a little bit because they couldn't really, decide what to do with him. Like kind of where you have AOP going down now with the Final Testament and Baron Corbin. Like, some people might view this as a demotion, but hopefully WWE knows what they're doing now. Hopefully, Shawn Michaels and Paul Levesque know what they're doing now. Don't make the same mistakes your father-in-law did, kid. Don't make them. So also there was less time and devotion and energy that went into the brand, which kind of makes me a little relieved because obviously NXT has a lot more attention and a lot more energy than ECW was, back during the 2006, 2008 kind of area in terms of like Paul Heyman and stuff like that. So yeah. Next, we had Triple H being drafted to SmackDown in 2004. Triple H was an undisputed champion, so he kind of had the free will to kind of go back and forth, to kind of do whatever the heck he wanted. But after losing the title, Triple H became exclusive to Monday Night Raw, but was ultimately the hottest free agent in the market. After being drafted to SmackDown, Triple H fought SmackDown champion Eddie Guerrero, which became his only match for SmackDown. Which, ultimately, like growing up, I saw mostly Triple H on Monday Night Raw. This kind of put a steeple for Monday Night Raw. This kind of put him there before, they put him there in 2004. And what we're going to talk about in a couple other, in the next, I think it's the next slide, we're going to talk about how John Cena came in 2005. Ultimately, to kind of fight Triple H. Triple H was kind of like that protege to kind of help John Cena grow within the industry and to kind of just help him become a better wrestler, better face of the company. So, obviously, I think Triple H had a lot to do with that. Next, we're going to talk about 2005, John Cena being drafted to Monday Night Raw. For the first time, a current heavyweight champion was drafted to another brand. Cena spent in his entire career on WWE SmackDown, from his rookies to his, when he walks into the ring and he challenges Kurt Angle, and Kurt Angle was like, "What makes you think that you could, challenge somebody like me?" And he's like, "Ruthless aggression," which was kind of like the main theme of wrestling kind of moving forward, which is honestly a great name. He's a great performer. He's just absolutely, honestly, the decision to put John Cena over was probably one of the best decisions WWE has ever done, because look at him now. He's a Hollywood star. He's a philanthropist. He's like a role model. Like nobody really can say anything bad about John Cena. So yeah, that's what I got. And like I felt like when John Cena was drafted to Raw, he was kind of like the face, and that was like the passing of the torch to Triple H to be like, look, all right, now it's kind of John Cena's show. All right, well, how with this segment kind of going on, it would be kind of silly for me not to kind of bring up the 2002 The Rock being drafted to SmackDown. This is he was the inaugural WWE draft #1 draft pick in the WWE draft history, which is pretty cool. And you got to think about it. There's superstars like The Undertaker, Kurt Angle, RVD, Booker T, Hulk Hogan, Brock Lesnar, and so many more that were advertised in this draft, and he didn't take them. The draft that they decided to go #1, Vince McMahon picked The Rock. The Rock, which he probably thought The Rock was going to stay within the company longer than he did. But, ultimately they needed somebody big like The Rock to stay on there. WWF around 2002 was sued by the World Wildlife Foundation for, causing them to rebrand. I feel like that's the huge reason why they went to WWE and split up the shows, and also for money revenue and live shows. Um, WWE was mostly known by WWF the whole entire time. And you also have to realize that the internet isn't what it used to be. The internet, now you can kind of type something like WWF, and you'll see like pandas and like and bears hugging or whatever the Wildlife Foundation's about. And you're like, wait a minute, this isn't wrestling. What happened? Where did they go? Nowadays in modern day internet, they're like, oh, did you mean WWE? But back then they didn't have that. So essentially, your product name or your business name was kind of like the integrity, was kind of like what your audience looked for in terms of, trying to find a reason why to watch you. I know that, sound a little confusing, but like back then, you didn't have the internet. The internet, you didn't have specific words or phrases to kind of help you find out what the hell you're trying to look for in the first place. Back then, they were like, all right, we basically lost all of our name. We got to kind of start from scratch here. WWE, splitting it into brands. I think that, obviously that is now proved to kind of be like a money idea by Vince McMahon. But ultimately, I think the way it kind of brought up was, kind of bad. So, yeah. I kind of liked how once when they kind of initiated the whole WWE thing, it was WWF. And then they did a commercial where it's like, get the F out of here. Like, I don't know, I thought that was pretty cool. I was like, oh my God, like so so innovative, like it's so impressive. Oh my God. Like I just thought it was funny as hell. I thought it was funny as hell. Absolutely. And honestly, you kind of had McMahon, Ric Flair represent both brands. Their feud came to an end in June of 2002, where McMahon defeated Ric Flair in a no holds barred match. Which honestly, if Vince McMahon wasn't egomaniac, which would never happen. Ric Flair is one of the best wrestlers in wrestling history. For him to kind of fight Vince McMahon and lose in a no holds barred match just basically greased up Vince's ego more than it needed to be. So ultimately, we all know that Ric Flair probably should have won that match, but Vince had he kind of had this this determination to kind of bury WCW, basically anybody who didn't come up during his reign. So yeah. So the general managers eventually ended up being Stephanie McMahon and Eric Bischoff. So, obviously, like I said before, Vince McMahon uh, fired Paul Heyman, also fired Eric Bischoff, basically due to creative concerns about potentially people giving them the credit other than himself. So, ponder on that however you want. Um, you know, you can leave me a chat at the tips and donations link at the gsmcpodcast.net. But hey, if you're cool with it, let's go ahead and move on to our next segment, our fourth and final segment. We're going to talk about our Wednesday Superstar Spotlight. We're going to talk about Athena, a Ring of Honor, obviously the longest reigning Ring of Honor Women's Champion. So hey, don't go anywhere.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to the GSMC Wrestling Laureate Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Just kind of reiterate what we talked about. Our segment one, we talked about our WWE NXT Spring Breakin review. We talked about our AEW Dynamite preview. We also talked about memorable WWE Draft moments. And just kind of cap it all off here, we have our Wednesday night Superstar Spotlight. So, hey, without further ado, let's go on and dig on into it. Tonight, without further ado, we're going to talk about Athena. Athena, formerly known as Ember Moon. She has a couple names under the independent wrestling circuit. Miss her to hell. Miss her to hell. Wish that she stayed on WWE, but there's always a future. A guy can hope, can he? Next we have moving on, we kind of have Athena celebrates a 500-day reign as the Ring of Honor Women's Champion. That's impressive. That's unprecedented. That's something that a lot of people don't kind of see in modern day. I know when people see like the Roman Reigns and stuff like that, or when they might see a 500 title day reign, and they might be like, oh, I'm used to kind of seeing that. But that's the guys, that's the dudes. Seeing somebody like Athena accomplish something like that is so good. So good for not just the company of Ring of Honor, but it's just good for women's wrestlers from the past, the present, and the future. Like this just shows hope that your skills will be noticed if you go out and try for like a company like WWE. If you go out and you try to train for a company like Ring of Honor or your local, independent wrestling circuit. Actually, it's so crazy. Like ever since I've been like pretty deep into wrestling, I saw on Instagram. I saw on Instagram like kind of like this ad to be like, "Do you want to be a wrestler? Join this training camp happening at in Los Angeles." And I kind of thought to myself, I'd be like, "Man, that would be so cool to be a wrestler." Like, imagine I go from the Wrestling Laureate podcast to being an actual wrestler. That'd be so cool. I would give anybody who leaves a chat in the tips and donations link, free tickets, bro. I'm just kidding. I'm not trying to glaze you guys up. You know what I mean? That's not my business here. But anyways, so Athena, she won her championship defeating Mercedes Martinez at Ring of Honor Final Battle in 2022. She defeated competitors like Scott Blue, Willow of Nightingale, Yomashita, Billy Starks, Nyla Rose, and Hikaru Ashida. So top superstars, especially in New Japan Wrestling. So, a lot of credit. People think that just because you're not broadcasted on the WWE roster doesn't mean that you're necessarily the best of the best, and that's definitely not true. Obviously, you have superstars that are amazing all over the world. And so you shouldn't stay so simple minded. Don't be afraid to open up your wrestling mind with the GSMC Wrestling Laureate Podcast. Also, Athena has solidified herself as a cornerstone of women's wrestling. Once again, 500 days, unprecedented, unseen in terms of women's wrestling. And that the fact that they're not letting her, because that just kind of, foregoes a conclusion of like, oh, like they're just letting women. She's earning this. She did everything she can. She has the skills. She has the animosity. She has the storyline potential. You can't beat this girl. This girl is just great with everything. Like, I don't want to bring up cheese again. No, I'm just kidding. No, no, she's amazing. Definitely miss seeing her wrestle on broadcast television, but hopefully one day I'll be able to see her from a personal point of view. Maybe I know for actually, it's weird. I think anybody in the Southern California area, I think New Japan Wrestling is actually going to have an event at the Ontario Toyota Center in May. I think May 10th. No, May 11th. One of those days. And I think it's set to like feature John Moxley and just like cool wrestlers and stuff like that. So hey, if you're in the area, check it out. Um, so her real name is Adrienne Palmer. They call it, I guess, like she calls herself Reese as well. She was born August 31st, 1988. She signed with AEW and she represents Ring of Honor. And Ring of Honor, of course, is like that sister company, that Forbidden Door that's currently open to Impact Wrestlers and also AEW. Um, Ember Moon, what I remember as, and missed her so severely. Um, She's a former WWE NXT Women's Champion and a WWE NXT Women's Tag Champion. She was born in Garland, Texas. In high school, she played tennis along with softball, as well as the chess club. So this girl's smart. Also, she was also She was in a mathlete program. Like math is cool. I love math. Math. Just, how silly is it for someone like in a podcast to be like, I will not. No, I'm just kidding. Bro. Not trying to, bank on any of the dorks out there. So I thought that was pretty cool. She admitted in her biography that she was bullied in school for her love for professional wrestling. First of all, I hate whoever did that. If you guys are watching right now and you bullied, you know, Reese Palmer in high school, I want you all to get out right now. Just kidding. No, highly doubt. Highly doubt that any of those guys are watching this because they want to be a fan of wrestling. So, they used to, teaser for liking professional wrestling and video games, which is crazy. So crazy because nowadays in recent years, it's not back, how it was when I grew up. Like, I'm 92, 88. I'm 4 years younger than she is. So I don't know, it's crazy. Like usually people like back in the day when they used to play like video games and like comic books and stuff like that, they weren't necessarily rolling with the ladies. But which is crazy because I was like one of the best at Mortal Kombat. But ultimately, like it's not how it was. Like nowadays, everybody plays video games. Nowadays, everybody watches wrestling, and we love it. So that's cool for Reese to kind of stand up for herself and kind of do that. So she trained under Booker T in Houston, Texas. She went from the Ring of Honor. She was in Ring of Honor before, ladies and gentlemen, and then she went to the WWE NXT. Then she went to the main roster. Didn't really one of those examples of how Vince McMahon promoted these guys and ultimately didn't really know what to do with them. Didn't really know how to help them propel their career and how them help them make success in your modern day WWE, which kind of digs on Vince a little bit because be like, bro, like if you're in charge of a wrestling promotion, you should know how to promote new wrestlers as well as old wrestlers, which is kind of what Impact Wrestling. That's the kind of the reason why their downfall, because they were so good at promoting old wrestlers. New wrestlers were coming up, and they didn't know what the hell to do with them, so they came to WWE. Yeah, she was never utilized right on the main card. Then she went back to NXT, and she eventually made it up to a WWE NXT Women's World Championship match with Raquel Rodriguez. Ultimately, that didn't really work out the way Reese thought or Ember Moon thought it was going to, and she was released November 4th of 2021. Green brought as your Ring of Honor reigning 500-day reigning women's world champion. So, good for Ember Moon, good for Reese Palmer, great for Athena. So, definitely love that she's finding success somewhere because honestly, the moment she left, and honestly, you kind of have to think to yourself that if WWE decides to bring in someone new, you can bet your butt that this woman is going to be on the top of the list. Absolutely, absolutely. So, her coming back to WWE might seem a little, far-fetched right now. But hey, like I said, a man can hope. Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Wrestling Laureate Podcast. Brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Your support means a lot to us, so please remember to Superman punch that like and subscribe button and leave a positive review here at the GSMC Wrestling Laureate Podcast. Excuse me. We love peace, love, and positivity all the way. It really does make a difference. We also invite you guys to like us on Facebook, Twitter/X, Instagram, and TikTok for more content and updates. Like I said before, if I haven't made you guys a wrestling fan by now, we have a bunch of podcasts, sports, basically anything under the sun. Go ahead and check out the GSMC podcasting network where you can find sports, you can find book reviews, you can basically find anything, absolutely anything. Just get lost with your new family of podcasting, the bloodline that is the GSMC Sports Network. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm not just kidding that it's not that damn good because it is that damn good. No, but like I said, we have my man Sam on baseball, TJ and Jeremy on sports, Kenneth on football, and we have the Andrew Tate show. So yeah, just get lost with us in the entertainment conglomerate that is the GSMC Podcasting Network, or not, and regret being a part of something really awesome and badass. So anyways, thank you once again, and have a phenomenal day. Enjoy the rest of your week, guys.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great. I don't wanna go to work.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great. I don't wanna go to